Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, back with another episode of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast. This is episode number 385. We've been on hiatus for a couple of weeks due to various logistics and end of the year kind of wrap up things. So here with me, as always, I have my erstwhile partner in crime, Mr. Tao Master 99. How you doing, Tao?
Doing good. It's good to be back. It's been a while since I've been on.
Yeah, it was good to have some time off. There were some games out there that we wanted to spend time with, and like I said, some other stuff to take care of. Without much further ado, we're going to get right into it with our segment one, our gaming experiences over the last couple of weeks. First thing that I want to talk about is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. So this is a game that we started talking about a couple of weeks ago, pretty much the weekend of the show episode after it came out. I have since completed the game. Had an absolute blast with it. It is, I think I've tried to go on record several times as saying it's just not my norm to really gush about games because, different people take to different games differently. And so I hate to come off as if I'm trying to say that, any one game that I've played is like the best video game ever made or is somehow better than something else that somebody else might love. I'm never, when I express those things, I'm never like actively seeking consensus for it. But I am going to talk about my personal feelings and perspective on Clair Obscur 33. We got into it a couple of weeks ago when I was about maybe 12 hours in, and I'd mentioned it. But like I said, since completing it, I'm just going to go ahead and go on the record as saying this is, for me, the best video game that I've ever played my entire life. And I've been playing video games since video games started. So I've, pretty much seen everything come by my windshield at some point or another. Start talking about, and we're really kind of extending on kind of some of the things that DBQ and I went into when he was on. I think one of the most prominent things in this game is world building. I'm a person who tends to gravitate towards fiction that has a lot of structure around it. I tend to be more of a Star Trek fan than a Star Wars fan because I find that the structure that there is in Star Wars, they tend, especially in the last three movies, they tend to just dispense with it willy-nilly whenever they feel like it. Whereas like a world like Star Trek has like norms and organizations and a political system, and those things don't get disrupted, right? I mean, if you're going to tell something like I can't remember what the name of like the clandestine organization in there, but they had an arc of fiction in there that was like about section like 36 or something like that. But it was basically like their equivalent of the CIA of the Federation, right? If you're going to tell a story like that in a Star Trek story, you're going to proceed through it almost exactly as like you would tell a Tom Clancy story. Like and my wife and I just got done watching Jack Ryan, the series on Amazon Prime, and it's just as that world tries to structure and ground things in the real world, they go about it with the same care in Star Trek, and so we've talked about this a little bit with like things of when we make analogies to like Game of Thrones and things like that. This world has an incredibly detailed and intense structure, and one of the things that you will come through while playing it is it's so detailed and structured that it's really vast and, I won't say overwhelming, but I think you quickly, as you get into the game, realize that it's probably impossible that you're going to ever learn everything specific about this world. And so you're grabbing and reaching at these little pieces that try and come by, and some of the little pieces that they come by are fairly detailed. Then there's going to be some things like there are going to be some allusions, like they allude to. Well, I won't get into it. There are some like organizations and structures they allude to, but then never get any detail. And it kind of leaves you wondering, oh, well, I wonder like what that aspect of the world is like. So it does an amazingly good job of balance of being like super hyper detailed about some things and then leaving you wanting about other things. But the things that you're interested in knowing, the fact that they don't tell you doesn't necessarily leave you hobbled. Unless they absolutely want to. And that's the other thing that makes it super interesting to kind of imbibe this world, is that you know, at the end of the day, you're never going to know everything about the plot and the story and the details. You're going to make up assumptions, tons of things you're going to speculate about. And when 2 or 3 people gather who have completed this game, none of them are going to have the same story. All of them are going to have different perspectives. There are some very overt reasons for that, but then there are some just carefully executed and well-crafted approaches to conveying the narrative that kind of deliberately do that. Like they deliberately lead you through the game, not telling you about certain things. And like I said, that will continue all the way up until the end. So I mentioned in the first outing on this, you know, it has some other specific things that kind of appeal to me in terms of narratives. It's very Victorian-esque. It is very much a period piece. It is very close to being steampunkish, and all of those things are things that I find particularly appealing and tend to, you know, characterize the type of fiction and an IP that I gravitate towards. The soundtrack and the audio design, you know, and on both of these topics, these are also award categories that I feel like this game I expect to see this game definitely garner nominations for awards. So I definitely expect this game to garner a nomination across several of the award shows for story writing, plot, narrative. The second area that I expect to see them garner a lot of nominations for are for audio design, as well as orchestration, song, soundtrack. You know, the different award shows handle those categories differently. The soundtrack in this is amazing. It is operatic. The original soundtrack is out now. It's on iTunes for purchase. It's streaming on at least Amazon Music. I think it's streaming on Spotify also. It's 8+ hours of music. It's like 156 songs. It's an incredibly wide, varied degree of work. There's a central theme that is very common and will feel not repetitious, but to me, very, you know, there's great orchestral works that have like a central theme that you kind of always remember, like the Superman, like a lot of the John Williams stuff, like Star Wars, Superman, you know, that those central kind of fanfare themes kind of resonate throughout all of the work, but it never feels like repetitive to me or overly done. Halo, right, has central themes, right, to its orchestral work. So this is like that, but it's an incredibly large volume of work that they've done. They have posted the studio sessions for a lot of the songs that they recorded, and that is in like every day. Like I just go to YouTube and just will watch like 1 or 2, right, just to kind of hear that theme and live in that world again, and seeing the music artists and the ensemble of the people that they have doing that work. It's amazing. I would expect, right, these guys, or at least these pieces, to be performed at the TGAs, right, at the end of the year. And the soundtrack goes across like just tons of different genres of music. Again, the best of it, I think, is the operatic stuff. But then there's kind of some hip hop beats and some and you know, some other kind of poppy like stuff. There are certain races that you encounter that kind of have their own theme associated with them, and things of that nature. But it's just an amazing work. The vast majority of it done in French. There are a few English tracks as well. But like I said, it's just kind of an amazing body of work. And the third thing that I'll kind of leave off talking about, because I could proceed on talking about this game for like 8 hours, right, easily. But character design and development. So I won't get on, like, there's multiple costumes you can gain and unlocks and things like that. Those are, to me, obviously, those are very kind of gamey, gamesmanship kind of things. So all those things are in there for you to hunt down and track down. But just talking about, you know, like I said, the suits and the uniforms that they wear and the costumes that they wear are, like I said, very Victorian-esque. I kind of think in a lot of ways, and I didn't play 1886, The Revolution. I feel like there's a lot of things in this game that I feel like are things 1886 was trying to do. But there are costumes that they wear. There's a uniform, right, that the expeditions wear, but no one's in exactly the exact same uniform, right? So, and there are bits of fiction that kind of play with those notions of that type of organizational structure. But it's a neat little nuance and flavor to the game. One of the things that you can do in the game is you can gain different hairstyles. But I would say even without gaining different hairstyles, like the individuality that they give to each of the characters with little physical details like scars. This is the expedition whole is a multi-ethnic expedition. So there are Black characters, there are Asian characters, there are characters of different ethnicities. Throughout the story that you see and that you encounter, even though the core group, right, isn't quite as diverse, it is kind of weird to me, a little strange, just the pick that like by the time the story's all done, like the core group of characters you have is basically all women except for like one, or I guess two people. So that structure is a little. It just seems to be tilted that way, and I don't know what the reason for that is. It doesn't make any difference to the story. It was just a thing that I noticed. But each of the characters, then when you talk about like the voice acting and the cutscenes that you see, there's different crucibles of character interaction and character development that formulate the structure of the game. Right? There's cutscenes that you will see. There's an overworld that you kind of go around so that you can navigate like what missions you want to go on. But the interstitial for navigating in that overworld is a campsite. And when you're at the campsite, you can, much like many games that are in vogue now, kind of like Avowed and some other things, you can interact with different characters in the campsite. And that actually provides some level of relationship building, and in some cases will actually lead to you gaining access to different things. Now, I've seen a headline that says that there are romance options. So I didn't engage with the relationship building to the extent that I ever saw anything like that trigger. But again, that's another accolade to heap on top of this game, that there are these, that didn't prevent me from finishing the game. So there are all of these things that you can do, even to the point of character engagement and character development and progression that you can do, but that you also don't have to do. And as you go through the game, I mean, it depends on how you take the games and how you choose to interact with games. I feel like the breadcrumbs that they provide you takes you down the path of getting very involved with these characters, learning who they are and getting to know them, but also investing in them, right, in terms of point progression and getting down the skill tree and things like that. And that has impact, right, as the story progresses. You will, I think, get to a point where you feel personally involved, like with a character. And like I said, that has consequences, right? Because through this game, you will be exposed to things, you will be forced to make decisions. And like I said, that to me gives you more of an emotional hook to the characters and the decisions that you're making. So all in all, it's just a kind of, standing ovation for this game. There are lots of people participating in it, and I don't know that the long-term attachment is going to be there. I think there's two different core groups of people attaching themselves to this game. There are people who love heavy, emotional, story-driven stuff, and then there are people who are very mechanical and come from the background, I think, in my opinion, of playing Souls games. And I think those two groups of people approach this game vastly differently and are reacting to things vastly differently. So there's, patches are starting to roll out for the game now. There are what the team is doing is they are nerfing some of the combinations of attack, right? So the progression system in this game involves leveling up your weapons, leveling up your superpowers, equipping your superpowers. There's a combinatorial effect of like when one character gets super experience with a certain power, then that becomes accessible by multiple characters. So there's that too. And so in many ways, it would have been impossible to understand and prepare for every skill, weapon, and superpower combination that is possible to have in this game. And so the team is going back now, and they're nerfing some things. I would assume at some point they're gonna balance some things. That is hitting the people who have attached themselves to this game with a very heavy emphasis on like the combat and platining the game and 100%ing the game, and causing them to feel, I think, a certain way, right, about the changes that are being implemented, way more so than the people who were into it for the story. I was into it for the story, so that like them nerfing an attack that I never used in the game, I'm like, okay, like that doesn't really impact me. I am planning on doing a replay of this game. I bought the game on the Epic Game Store. I am playing on PC, by the way. I'm planning on buying another copy on Steam because there is New Game Plus in the game, but New Game Plus uses your save file, and I'm like, I don't want anything to happen. I don't want anything mucking to happen with that save. That save file represents my first progression through the story. I am very emotionally attached to that, and like what is in my head is my chosen understanding of the story. And I just don't like, I want that save file to remain pristine. Like I don't want any changes. And so when you go to do New Game Plus, it does, I don't know exactly because I haven't done New Game Plus yet, but it does. I think there are some things that it takes away, but then there are some things that it leaves. And I want both options. I believe you can continue to explore the world because I didn't do everything in the world. So I think you can continue to explore in the world, and I didn't fight every optional boss. There are about 20 plus optional bosses in this game. I think about 24. I faced about 8. And so I just want to have 2 different save files, so I have the option to either continue exploring the world or to restart the game, and I'm not sure exactly how that works. So rather than risk it, I'm just going to buy a second copy of the game and just start a new playthrough. So, Tao, any questions about any of that stuff?
Yes, I have several actually. And this is a new studio, right? I was kind of looking up their
yes.
So here. It looks like this is the only game they've done so far.
Yeah, so this studio was primarily formed by a group of 3 developers, I think, who were at Ubisoft, and kind of got, I wouldn't necessarily say frustrated, but just came to understand that there were certain things that they were just not going to be able to do, right, within the governance regime of Ubisoft. And Ubisoft is a fairly well-structured company with how it has structured green light gate reviews, right? And things where, like, in program reviews where you have to come at every 12 months or something, with your project and show your progress and show something demonstrable, and kind of revisit the criteria by which, right, your game was greenlit, to determine, hey, has the market changed? Has something happened that says this is no longer like a thing to do? Do you guys need to make tweaks or adjustments because player sentiment has changed, right, based on telemetry we've seen from this one game? So I can definitely understand that. There's a larger philosophical treatise going on out in the gaming discussion, which I don't believe is entirely valid, but there's a lot of, this game was made by 33 developers, on a smaller budget. So the entire gaming industry should be able to do this. And I'm like, well, no, it's not how it works. And I also wouldn't take the uncanny success of one team and say everybody can do that, right? And in the analogy I made was, hey, so what we shouldn't be thinking is that I can go to the 1,500 person team of Call of Duty or Battlefield and divide that entire team up by 33 and get 45.45 teams out of that, right? And send them off with, outside of a corporate structure with no backing, and expect them to execute what this team did, right, equally as well. I'm like, no, you're going to get like one super huge hit. You're probably going to get, two hits that will maybe break even. You're going to get 9 games that are going to get critically received, but don't break even, and those studios are going to be shut down, right? Let's revisit Callisto Protocol, right? And then you're going to have another smattering of the remainder of those 45 teams who will never get out of the prototype or designing phase, will never get funding, or will get funding and will have that game canceled before it ever gets done, right? So there's definitely topics I think to be considered, right, in the gaming industry, but I don't think we should be taking this one team and saying, Tony Stark built this in a cave, right, and saying, so everybody should. But yeah, it's a small team, Ubisoft developers. All the rest of the developers fairly junior, so it's not like a team that was stacked with veterans. A lot of stories about just weirdisms, like they found their writer on Reddit, they found their the soundtrack person on SoundCloud. So a lot of kind of like garage band, like innovator kind of stuff in how they put this project together.
Yeah, I would say like grassroots. I think that's for this small of a studio too. Like they kind of had to do that kind of, I guess, I don't know, not ordinary way of thinking of things. Like if you had like I said, if you split up the Call of Duty team into like a bunch of different teams, they'd still have that backing with all that money and all this other stuff that they can do, marketing and all this other stuff. But when you're that small of a studio, you kind of have to get creative, and that probably helps too sometimes. You take more risks. In this case, it actually panned out, and it's been like critically acclaimed and like user acclaimed. Like everybody's like gushing over this game that I've seen so far online.
Yeah, and I also want to poke holes in a lot of the convention that's running around that this team didn't have backing. So they did have a publisher. So it's not like Baldur's Gate 3 where it wasn't self-published. They had a publisher. That publisher was clearly helping with the financing because their voice cast is Jennifer English, who was Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3, Ben Starr, who really broke out last year in Final Fantasy 16, I think it was, but has gone on to get big roles and is very prominent in the gaming community, has shown up on news shows and trade shows and all sorts of things. They have Andy Serkis, and they had Charlie Cox. And I'm like, that team, like unless the 3 developers who came from Ubisoft are all millionaires, that team was not funding that stuff, right? And then the like I said, the composer that they found on SoundCloud, they found him on SoundCloud, and I think he works with Lorianne Testard, I think her name is. I can't remember exactly, but she has an opera background. But I'm like, you can see from the sound sessions they recorded, I'm like, one of the things that we've come across in the last few years is, and the mocap, right? Like sound studio time and mocap booth time, like those things aren't cheap and they are a significant cost. And this team, like a lot of money was spent on those things. I mean, you record 8+ hours of music in a recording studio, right, on a stage, with specialized microphones and high-end equipment. Like you're not doing that out of a garage band level, studio. So I think the publisher threw in money quite clearly to fund and back stuff like that to provide them the budget to do it. That all being said, right, like you said, like I think what they did was they decided we're going to make sure that the money goes to things like that. And therefore we're not going to go off and like find like a sound and audio person from industry who's going to charge us an arm and a leg, right, to get this stuff done.
Yeah, looking at the publisher, Kepler Interactive, looks like they're doing mostly like smaller indie devs. Sifu, they did Sifu, they published Sifu, Scorn, Pacific Drive, kind of Flintlock was another kind of, I guess, bigger one from last year. Bionic Bay, which I never even heard of. So, they're kind of all over the place there.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I mean, this is definitely not a I mean, look, despite what I said, this is not me saying that this is not EA funding split fiction, right? Um, I don't think there were that many dollars behind it, but there were also not $0, right? And in fact, some people have pointed out I don't echo it like a ton, but because I don't know what the numbers are, but I mean the core team was 30 something people. The Sandfall Interactive is about 30 something people. But more than 30 something people worked on this project. I mean, they did have pieces of it that they farmed out to people that they outsourced, and probably, maybe had some contract labor and stuff too. So, I mean, the team is larger than 30. I don't know that that's a super significant data point, right, to throw water on what they've accomplished. Because like I said, I don't know the number, so I'm not trying to insinuate that, but I am saying that, the overly optimistic glasses that are being used to view exactly how this got accomplished and whether or not it's reproducible, right? It's whether or not it's repeatable at scale, I think is a little very heavy-handed, right, in that perspective, and so probably needs a little modicum of kind of calming down.
So looking at kind of the Xbox app here, they kind of give you like approximate hours of how long it would take to beat. It says 26 hours just for the main story, 38 if you do some of the all the extras. And you said you beat it already, and you had already gotten 12 hours in from a couple weeks ago. Do you know about how long it took you altogether?
Yeah. So so I beat the game in 36 and a half hours. I think I hit the final boss at 30. And then I was not able to beat the final boss, so I backtracked and went on a grind for about 4 hours, and then went back to the area where the final boss was. There's some stuff to get through, and then got to the final boss. I will say, once you are in Act 3, there are some lengthy cutscenes you're going to go through that probably border on that, like on JRPG levels, right, where you're going to be sitting in a cutscene for probably 15 minutes, maybe longer, and that's tying up part of your gameplay. But pretty much, the game was pretty much like 12 hours per act for me. That I pretty much tracked on that. I was at 12 hours. Well, I shouldn't say that. Actually, because Act 1, I was probably 19 hours maybe. So I don't know, but the game spreads out fairly well. I'd say it's close to being, for me, for my run, close to being equal parts time, right, between Act 1 and Act 2 and Act 3. So yeah. I mean, I think the conventional wisdom on the street is that it takes about 30 hours to complete. And like I said, I hit my first attempt at the final boss battle right at 30 hours. So other people who did other things, may be able to complete it in that amount of time.
Yeah. And then a couple, I'll say ending questions, obviously without any spoilers, but do you know if there's multiple endings? Like, is that a reason too you want to go back, or as far as you know, it's just kind of like the one ending to it?
I will answer that by saying I do know whether there are multiple endings or not. That is what I do know about. That is not why I want to go back and do another run. And then I'm sorry, what was the third part of that question?
And then the other question is, and I guess it might be kind of hard to answer this, but any room for a sequel after the ending? And I know you kind of said you can kind of go through the world afterwards, but just in general for the story, like, can you see sequels coming out of this, or maybe just like spin-offs?
Yeah, there's like 99 bajillion different ways they could go. And I'll use the term sequel, but I'll just say, whether or not it was a sequel or just another story told in this world. Yes, there's 1,000 different directions they could go. I don't have a warm fuzzy for feeling that like they would do that, or if they expected this particular story to kind of end. I feel like the way that it ends, there was not an intention to be a sequel. That all being said, this movie has already locked down a movie deal. So no idea, which way that will go or whether or not that will pull them in a direction or not. I will say my personal preference is that there not be a sequel. I am kind of struggling as it is right now for wanting to play any other story-driven, narrative-driven game out of worry and fear that just nothing will match up to this for me. So for this IP itself, I kind of just want it to be like done. Like I don't want them to try and reattempt, right, to bolt something onto this out of fear that, it will disrupt the memory of the experience that I just went through, or that the next thing, won't be as like it's really difficult for me to imagine that this success could be replicated, right, by the team doing a sequel.
And then that kind of get into one of my next questions was you saying, and it's a bold statement, this is like one of the best games you've ever played. Will that sour you for like upcoming any kind of single player games, or like you start playing something like it's not Clair Obscur, so I don't know, or are you gonna wait? Are you gonna, like you said, are you gonna wait like a certain amount of time or an ornament amount of time before you play any other kind of single player, whether it be regular RPG or action RPG or anything like that?
I don't know, quite honestly. So probably about the 19-hour point through this game, what I said to myself was, because we've been doing this a long time. I'm not a big story-driven, narrative-driven guy. I play some of that stuff when I feel like I should or I have to, but really, particularly since 2019. I've just become less and less interested in that. And I was already kind of firmly in like the mechanical spectrum kind of before. About 19 hours through this, 2/3 through this, what I said was I was going to rip up the playbook. I was no longer going to play Call of Duty, right, or any of that stuff. And I was just going to explicitly go off on a tear of playing narrative story-driven games. And that's where I was at like 19 hours in, or 2/3 through. Then things got better, right, from even where I was there. And when it was end, I was so kind of emotionally spent between like what I'd went through. I just completely reversed my decision. I said, nope. I don't know. I don't see any story matching this for me. So since then, and we're going to get into it tonight, I don't mind saying it out. I've definitely gone back to Call of Duty. I've picked up and started doing a run of Doom Eternal. I've kind of, because some of the things I'm doing with live streaming and Let's Plays, I've, decided I'm going to go down this path of kind of playing or replaying, the top list of first-person shooters ever made. Definitely planning on getting back into racing games and flight sims and things like that. So, yeah, where I am right now in the moment is that game has kind of ruined it for me as far as stories go. I am going to try and go back and maybe play some story stuff but it's firmly in the space where I'm not going to feel obligated to complete it, right? It's like I'm going to, kind of check some things out. I will say the strongest interest that I have coming off of it now is being forced to learn the parry system and being forced to finally kind of fall in love with boss battles when I have historically just hated boss battles and the whole design ethos behind a boss battle. But the pairing of the boss battles, what I will say is it has caused me to go off and build out a list of Souls games that I'm going to go back and try again. And so I reinstalled Elden Ring. There are some other things. I've been talking to some people in the Souls community. A lot of them have recommended that if I like this game, to go play Sekiro. So, there are lots of games that I've been like, I don't have time to be bothered with that stuff. I spent 8.5 hours in Elden Ring. I just finally got tired of like the constantly refighting enemies that had respawned right after I went to the site of grace. But I am going to give those types of games another go. The narrative and story driven stuff it's tough for me right now. So like I said, I've bucketed a little corner of getting into that stuff off in the end, but it's very, I'm bounding it by very low scope, low level of effort for right now. And more of a limited curiosity than any notion that it's going to become my main thing.
And then just last question. I know you mentioned like, you're expecting a lot of, end of the year nominations. So do you and I'm, like I said before, like everybody is loving this game, but do you think there's any kind of a chance that this might get lost since it's kind of an early-ish year game? Kind of like that happens sometimes.
No, I don't think so. I think so the crowd of people who claim that they were like emotionally impacted by like Final Fantasy games and things, that's the vibe I feel around this. And it exceeds that. Like the people who talk about Tifa and like Cloud and like all these things in Final Fantasy games, the vibe to me, from what I'm interpreting from other people, the vibe around this to me is at least equal to that, if not that it doesn't exceed it. And so the only difference right now is it doesn't have the heavy tether to the notion of the PlayStation platform as being like the home of that thing and like all of people's nostalgia and memory associated with like a particular console and that time in their life and that type of stuff. And it doesn't have the total number of people who have played it. The thing that will hold it, that is holding it back now in terms of getting even more players on board, I think, not necessarily that will impact it right when it comes to award season, but I think a lot of the reason it's not getting more people in the pool is because of that parry system, right? People hearing that it has any combat that sounds anything remotely like a Souls game or Black Myth Wukong or I always forget the name of this game, although I played it a little bit. It was a Bandai Namco game that was sort of along the lines of that. But there was also another game that I played that was a Game Pass game that now I'm just forgetting the title of it. But when people hear that, like that comment, and like I've been telling people, like like there are so many games that have a parry system that you can get through the game without really gaining proficiency in that area, right? You can just beat enemies, right? You can make your offense OP. And then with games like you can have an ability to just like level up right to a point. So, the Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Fallen Jedi type of thing. I found that like you don't have to master parrying, right? You can use it, but there are boss battles in this game, and so when you parry, you also counter strike. And there's actually later in the game you get introduced like another level of parry and counter strike. Some of the bosses will have so many hit points until you really, really like hit this tip over point where your attacks become super powerful. You must master parrying to hit that counter strike to do the massive damage that you need to do to those bosses. Otherwise, and it's even worse with the optional bosses. Otherwise, you're just going to be doing chip damage, and it's just like they're like the damage that they do when they pull off an attack versus the damage you do when you pull off an attack. You're just never going to get ahead of that tail chase, right? And you're just going to wind up losing that battle. And then on top of that, like there's a what do I want to call it? There's a very addictive hook, I might say, to like a bittersweet hook to pulling a parry, because at the moment in time when an enemy attacks, you're going to have a split second to make a decision. Do I go for the dodge, which is always admittedly easier? And I won't say that dodging is easy in this game, but it's definitely easier than parrying. You're going to have a moment in time to either go for the dodge or go for the parry. And in your mind, the parry is the higher risk, but the so much higher reward. not to mention the additional eye candy. I think that's the other award area that I think this game will get a lot of awards for nominations for technical achievement, art, and animation. The work that this animation team did into all of the attacks, but in particular the parry system. When you hit a parry and you hit the counterattack, it is we've been talking about Dynasty Warriors Origins this year, right? Which you and I have both played. And you want to talk about a spectacle fighter? Dynasty Warriors Origins does it. It's not even in the stadium with this game. And each character has their own individualized animations that, I mean, it's like a John Woo film, I mean, I won't get into any examples, but some of the thing, there's a character that like I said, when they introduced the second level of attack and parry, there's a character that has a scythe. It's like a staff with a scythe at both ends. And she hits a parry, she gets pushed back. You can see the rocks and dirt kicking up from her feet, getting pushed back. And then when she gets near the end of that animation, she starts twirling the scythe around behind her back. And then so it feels like it's like Thor spinning his hammer. And then she runs forward, leaps into the air, and just wallops the enemy with this super big attack. There's this other character who really her combat style is she's kind of like a fencer. When she hits a parry, she hits the parry, turns her back on the enemy, and so she turns and she faces you, and you can see her hair billowing and this big aura of power energy being generated around her. She whips her sword in this flourish, and then turns around and just obliterates the enemy. So yeah, the animations are and if you've played kind of the Atlas style games and you're familiar with that level of animation work that goes in, this just takes it to the next level. All right, Tal. So we've done it again. We've spent 45 minutes on Expedition 33, which DBQ and I did the first time we talked about this. Why don't we talk about your game that you have been playing, Touch Type Tale?
Yeah, so since the DBQ's not here and he's kind of the niche kind of gaming guy usually, I kind of threw my head into the tape here. So there's this game called Touch Type Tale. It came out for free on Epic Games this past week. They had a couple of games this week. Usually only have one, but they had two. One was Touch Type Tale. So it's a real-time strategy game, but where you're typing everything. So if you're kind of an older gamer, you might remember Typing of the Dead back in the day, where you're typing to kill the zombies instead of using a light gun. This is a little bit different. So you're doing the typing, but you're doing, so it's real-time strategy RTS. I haven't gotten too far into it. Probably maybe an hour. I don't even say an hour. Maybe 45 minutes ish into the game. The very first level they kind of throw you into, you actually are building. I'll say building. Kind of building your camp, I guess you could say. You have to do the mining. You have to build barracks for archers and spearmen and sword guys and all that. I think I built a farm at one point. So while you're doing all this, you're not moving your mouse around and doing all this. You have to type everything. So there's kind of a kind of overworld, kind of a map that you're looking at, and each building has its own word that you have to type out to get archers, or to send your guys out to do the mining, or to actually get workers to do the mining itself. So you're constantly typing. So it was just I don't know. It was just I remember playing a little bit of Typing of the Dead back in the day, and I think there was might even been a Mario game, I think, at one point too, where you could type at some point, which is actually a PC game. It wasn't even for the consoles, I think, or something similar. I never played that one, but I did play a little bit of Typing of the Dead. So I was like, you know what, that's kind of interesting. I was kind of one of those moods, as I get sometimes, where not necessarily that I didn't want to play anything, but I was just like, it's kind of interesting, because I was checking out their free games for the for the day or for the week, and I started playing it, and it was just it kind of scratched that RTS, obviously I got, Command and Conquerors, I got all these other games I could play, but it's kind of something different, it wasn't just here, I'm going to move my mouse around and, drag and drop, drag so I can, pick certain people, put them this way, put them that way. So it's just kind of a different feel a little bit. So it's really fun. As you're looking at the map, and there's different paths you can go to. You actually have to type, whatever word that's showing there, to get them to go, to move to that path and stuff like that. So it's really really weird, weirdly really quirky. So just having a lot of fun. So once I got past that first stage though, then it got like super simple. So I don't know if that was kind of like one of those things where they give you a taste of what's to come. Like, here, hey, this is what you're gonna do eventually. And I was able to manage it fairly well. I think I did have to try at least twice. I think I failed the first time I tried it just because I wasn't in that mindset that I had to type like literally everything. You got to type to do to do everything. So once I figured that out and got used to it, I finally got past that part. Then the next part was they already gave you like a barracks, and they're just like sending people out. And, you just have to type to move them around the map, and strategically place them on the map, stuff like that. So and then after a certain amount of time on that map, you get reinforcements if you can hold off the enemies that are coming in long enough. So as those enemies or those reinforcements are coming in, once again you have to type to move them different places on the map. And I think the objective of that map was also there was 3 towers that you had to light the it's like the not warning signal, but like basically the signal to get those extra troops to come through. So you had to keep those 3 towers lit for like, I don't know, it was like a minute or so, maybe a minute and a half. So once you did that, then they start coming in, and then even when those came in, you still have to keep them going so you can have more reinforcements come in, but also like fight the enemies and stuff like that. So it's pretty good. It's pretty cool. It's like I said, it's quirky. There is the only thing so far that you don't have to type to do is you can like either split off or like do different formations for your characters, and that's just like you just hit control and whatever. I guess it's still kind of typing control, and whatever letter they want you to do. So and that splits off your teams. So and I guess there's kind of different ways you can split them off that I haven't figured out quite yet. I just been splitting them off, just like if there's like 4, it'll split them off to 2. I'll just half it, and then you can like send them on their way. So, but yeah, I've been having a good bit of fun with that. So I'm gonna hopefully try to continue and do that the coming week. So see how far I can get, and see if it gets even more crazy than that first level where they kind of show you all these other things you could try to do. So the map itself and just kind of the graphics are kind of storybook-ish, kind of in that I guess medieval type, like kind of characters or drawings. So so not too bad to look at. Like cutscenes and stuff are just like static characters, with little speech bubbles. That's fine. I mean, I didn't expect anything too bad, too great with that. So yeah, having a lot of fun and just gonna keep on typing. It's educational as long as as well as entertainment. So it's kind of nice. I keep my typing skills up.
So, and did I hear you right? This game hit your radar because it was a free game on the Epic Game Store?
Yeah, that's where I originally saw it. Yep. And then I think it was actually discounted on Steam too, I believe, just recently when I was kind of researching it.
All right, very cool. Well, if there is not anything else on the gaming experience topic, we'll go ahead and go on to segment 2 and talk about our news for this week. So the first news story over at Eurogamer, 200 Overwatch devs at Activision Blizzard vote to unionize. Like I said, this news story over at Eurogamer by Vicky Blake. Almost 200 Overwatch developers working at Activision Blizzard have unionized, joining the Communications Workers of America after the overwhelming majority of workers signed up. A wall-to-wall unit now known as the Overwatch Game Makers Guild CWA. The union includes game developers across all disciplines, including design, production, engineering, art, sound, and quality assurance. The massive layoffs in the game industry and at my own studio became one of the first reasons I started to learn about how to organize to create a healthier workplace for everyone, said Frank Lecoq, VFX artist and organizing committee member. And so this is, a continuing story of how, various pockets of the industry are unionizing. I think this is the second at Blizzard. Not sure if it
Yeah,
says it in the article.
I was wondering, is this is something different than before, right? Or a different set of
Yes.
people? Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. And it's specific. It seems like it's specific to the Overwatch team. So I believe there's another group that unionized within Activision, within Blizzard. I think maybe they're QA folks. And then, of course, ZeniMax has had two unions. I have only heard of two unions that have been multidisciplined. So um, in a lot of the unionization stories that we've heard and seen, um, as of late, it has typically been around their QA organization and some of what I think are kind of the lower salaried ranks. But there have been two occasions in the last, I'd say, 6 months of union efforts and actions that have occurred that have been multidisciplinary. And so one of the challenges that I've always mentioned there would be to any notion of unionizing is that your high end workforce, your high salaried employees, your actual programmers and developers, right? Who are hands on keyboard writing code. Those are going to be your people who are not as heavily incentivized to organize. Now, this article says that it's multidiscipline and it calls it wall to wall. But I know in the previous instance they called it wall to wall. But then when they called out the labor categories associated, I was like, okay, that's not like all the disciplines that there are in the team. So it's tough to ascertain exactly what disciplines are involved and at what percentages. And that I think will play into just how prevalent activities like this are within studios. But, it'll be interesting to see, where it goes. Any comments on that one, Tal?
No, yeah, I was just looking. I was trying to look on here. It only mentions what the that group they joined supposedly has, like obviously different, design, production, engineering, but it doesn't say the 200 specifically, like what they were. Uh, so yeah, I'm not really sure what all they were involved in as far as what they do in the company. But I'm assuming it's probably the same thing. So just a bunch of different disciplines.
Yep. Yep. Let's go on to news story number 2.
All right, yeah, this is from Destructoid from Arca Sarkar, I believe is how you say that name. This is Palworld loses another fan favorite feature in the fight against Nintendo. So back in 2024, back in November, they had made a change, basically, I guess, in relation to the ongoing lawsuit, where pals that you captured, when you throw them out, they don't actually like appear out of this. Like you don't throw out the sphere. I think you just like the pal just kind of just appears or now or something. So now they've done another what they're calling a compromise right now. They've actually, so when before May 8th, when this recent patch came out, you were actually able to use some of the pals as a glider, so you can kind of just float around the world a little bit. But now that is no more. So now you just pull out your glider, and you could use a glider too, just like a regular glider. Like if you ever played Fortnite or whatever, it's just like a glider that kind of looks like that. That would pop out, which you might not think, oh, it's not such a big deal, but there actually was a difference between using just that basic glider and using the pals. The basic glider was, you wouldn't be able to go really that far. You would start to descend pretty much right away and pretty fast. And with some of the pals, you'd actually be able to stay up for quite a long time and float around the world and get to different spots if you saw something like across a chasm or something like that. Now you can't do that anymore, unfortunately. So they've taken that ability away. So now all you can use is the glider itself. And like I said, once again, this is a compromise in relation to the ongoing lawsuits. So and all the patents, they're kind of hitting Pocket Pair, excuse me, the developer with. So I think overall probably, like, it's a minor thing, but I know obviously some people are up in arms about it, and I think I've even seen reports now that there's already mods to put that back in. So officially though in the game, you're just using your glider. So yeah, you kind of stuck with that, but it kind of stinks that they kind of, even though there hasn't been any agreements or anything reached within the case. They're still making they're already making these changes, I guess, just to kind of try to appease Nintendo, I guess, or just try to keep the game going. Maybe they have to do that. Otherwise, maybe they'll have to like totally stop development. That it really hadn't said, at least not in this article, if that would happen. But unfortunately, it's the way it is right now, and we'll see how the court case keeps going. I haven't really heard anything lately about what's going on with that, so obviously it's still ongoing.
All right, very cool. Going on to news story number 3. This news story also over at Eurogamer. Some retailers have broken Doom the Dark Ages' street date, and huge spoilers are already out there. This news story also by Vicky Blake. Careful Doom fans, details of Doom the Dark Ages have leaked ahead of its release next week. As posted to the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, some players have received their discs ahead of the 15 May street date, which means details are popping up all over the place now, including information about the plot, menus, combat, weapons, bestiary, and more. So I'm not going to scroll anymore in that article because I don't want stuff spoiled for me. I am definitely planning on day oneing Doom the Dark Ages and getting on board. It's been getting good reviews, both on PC and Xbox and PlayStation. So some comments about that came from reviews, not from the leak, about how, and it's been interesting because I've been replaying Doom Eternal, how Doom Eternal is so focused on just second-to-second time management of like your life and ammo, and how you attack enemies. Like you can't afford to kind of overkill enemies, right, and kill them like very quickly with a ranged weapon because you just constantly need to be replenishing your life and ammo. And you do that by killing enemies. There aren't a ton of like health pickups and other things like that. There are some, but not a ton. And so there's been comments that like there's been less of an emphasis on that, more of an emphasis on like the shield. So it's I don't know. Like on this channel, we constantly rail about leaks, right? About how there are people maliciously doing things, right, that wind up ruining things for gamers and development teams. Getting the collector's edition and having done it like with Starfield, like stuff happens. Like 90% of the time, what you need to be concerned about is not getting your collector's edition on time, right? Which, and I think Starfield went about it by like, I want to say they gave you a code, but I think in the Starfield collector's edition, the code was like in the case. So I'm not sure. So I think there are some collector's editions that they're like, here's the code like right away as soon as possible. And then like your physical stuff shows up later. That is the model that I would prefer because a lot of the other horror stories I hear is that, hey, I'm waiting on my collector's edition. My collector's edition didn't ship on time. So I'm actually not going to be right in the conversation of people with the game. And like with something like Starfield, that CE granted you an entitlement to be able to play the game in the early access window, right? So 3 days early. So, people wanting to experience something for the first time before they start hearing about it from the, social media and or direct spoilers and things like that, that's definitely kind of what you want. But, to this story, I don't know that there's anybody to blame really for you getting collector's editions early. And I think, it's always the problem that with any type of early access or whatever, that people can get stuff early and wind up starting to like talk about it. So I don't know that there's anything to be done about that or anything for anybody to be blamed. It is obviously different when like Amazon and Best Buy and GameStop do these things that wind up leaking information, right? Because they have a web page that goes live earlier than it should. But I don't know. Tal, any other thoughts on that?
No, I mean, you can't really do anything if it's, the retailer sent it out and it happened to got to you early, I guess, just for some reason. And I did get the Doom controller, or at least one of them. So there's this.
Nice.
This is the regular Xbox controller, and then there's also a Elite Series 2, which is a red. I think it looks like it's a red see-through controller. So I just got the green one because I like green. And it just
Now,
looks
did that come from the design labs, or was that just like available to like order from the Microsoft Store, or did you get it like at retail, brick and mortar, or?
Yeah, I just ordered it from. Did I get it from Microsoft? I think I got it from Best Buy. So it's just retailers you can get it. So, and it has a code for some kind of download once the game comes out. So I got the little card for that. So yeah, that's cool. I like it. It's got the little grippiness in the back of it. Um, kind of a cool. I don't know if you kind of see it. The
Yeah.
gray here. These little real ridges, which is kind of weird. Sometimes I hit that when I'm playing. It kind of freaks me out because I'm not used to that because it's usually just flat. But yeah, it's a really cool controller.
So, are you planning on playing Doom: The Dark Ages as soon as it comes out?
Yeah, I definitely want to. I tried. I tried Eternal, and man, I think it's just too much. It's just too busy. I don't think I ever. I don't think I ever played it all. The original Doom, like the reboot. But trying to play Eternal, I was just too overwhelmed. But this one looks like it might not. Like you said, people have said too. It doesn't look as bad. Uh, so we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I definitely want to try it out.
Okay. And did you play Doom 2016?
No, I never played that one at all. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Doom Eternal is it is a game to be hated, unquestionably. So I've been commenting as I've been going through it, is like, man, I hope they pull all this stuff out, like, and just do something different. You know,
Yeah.
it's the joy in Doom Eternal is having completed it, right? Which I was very surprised to find. I think I just went back and looked at this like a few months ago, but I saw it again this time. Is I was like only a third of the people on Steam have completed that game. So like, there's an achievement for, complete this game on any level, and like. It reads as like only 32.36% of other gamers have earned this achievement. And I'm like, wow, so only 33% of the people finished it, which means just a lot of people bought it and paid for it and said, yeah, no.
Well, I remember you talking about it too. Just not even just about the ammo, but just about some of the gameplay stuff that they kind of pull away from, like when you learn certain things. And so yeah, hopefully it's a little bit better.
Yeah, you and me both. So let's go on to the last story in the rundown. This news story over on Game Rant: Virtua Fighter 5 Revo getting console release. This news story by Michael Brandon Ingraham. Sega and Ryuga Gotoki Studio have officially confirmed that Virtua Fighter 5 Revo will be receiving a console release in the near future, including a version for the Switch 2. Wow. While not seeing the same notoriety now as its early days, Virtua Fighter stands as one of the most impactful fighting game franchises in gaming history. Virtua Fighter was one of the first 3D fighting games, and the series was a smash hit in its early days, becoming some of Sega's all-time best-selling arcade games. Now, the franchise's newest entry is making the jump to modern consoles. And so, yeah, I have a place in my heart that is near and dear for Virtua Fighter. It was fighting games are one of those genres that has just like I never like I understood why people liked them. I could just never get good at them. And it was finally with Virtua Fighter and some other games beforehand, but like just like at scale. Virtua Fighter kind of when fighters went 3D, and I experienced that in Virtua Fighter, then was the time that I was like, oh, I get it now. Like, these are heck of fun. And so I've always been a big, Virtua Fighter fan. Now, being PC only, fighting games aren't as big a thing. But it did catch my eye that Virtua Fighter 5 Revo was coming out to PC, and that's the only place it is right now. And so this news story is talking about it landing on consoles as well. And so it's pretty neat, in a day and age where we pretty much only really talk about, Street Fighter and Tekken. It's super interesting to hear about this coming out. And so Virtua 5 Revo is like it's hard to describe. It's a game that I guess it came out as an arcade cabinet over in Japan, and I think it was available as a home console game, but only in Japan. And now it's finally coming here. So I don't know, Tal. Any thoughts on this or any interest in playing Virtua 5 Revo?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you. This was, when this was coming out, Tekken was around the same time, and I kind of gravitated more to Virtua Fighter. I don't know why. I think I just kind of like the character design, maybe a little more grounded. You didn't have Tekken where you have like bears and a guy with like a big panther head on, and stuff like that. It was kind of weird, but this is kind of a little bit more grounded, a little bit more just, Street Fighter, street fights kind of a thing. So even though Tekken was graphically obviously better at the time. Even the original one, this was kind of the first like what polygon, totally polygon, 3D fighter. So, but I always kind of enjoyed it a little bit better. And they're both, when they're both kind of, I guess, gameplay wise a little similar because there's no like special moves or anything like that. It's all just hand to hand combat pretty much for the most part. So I thought that was always kind of interesting too. Even though I did, I always did like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. But this was always a good time too.
All right. Sorry, I didn't realize I was still sharing the screen. And so with that, let's go ahead and go on into segment 3, where we kind of round out anything else that we've been playing. So Tao, of particular interest, you've been playing a recent beta, which has caused a lot of discussion on comparisons between this game and Marathon.
Yeah, so Arc Raiders had a tech test or beta, or whatever you want to call it, last weekend, and I was able to. And I didn't put this in the rundown just because I only got to play like a handful of games with a friend of mine. He actually had messaged me about it, and I think I'd seen maybe during the week I had seen just things popping up about there's a tech test coming out, and I kind of read it and I was like, hey, it's an extraction shooter, so on the lines of Tarkov and those in Marathon, which is obviously another one that's going to be coming out soon, which is an extraction shooter. But he was like really raving about it. I was like, yeah, this is really good. Like even though it's just a tech test, like he's like this thing like it could come out right now if it wanted to. It was pretty good. So I jumped in there. I was playing with it with him, and yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I haven't played Escape from Tarkov before, but I've played other kind of games like that, both on PC and also in VR, just kind of that extraction shooter type game. I think I mentioned that no, I can't remember what it's called, the one VR game I had been playing, but there's that one, and there's another one called Contractors Exfil, which was another one. Those ones are like hardcore though. Like you actually in your like base and headquarters. I think even in Tarkov a little bit you do this. You actually have to like make your ammo. Like in virtual reality, I guess it kind of makes sense because they're trying to immerse you in the in the world. So you have to go over to like different machines and like put the ammo and the powder and stuff like that, and make it here. This is kind of just you're jumping into the world. You get you do your loadout before you go out, and then you jump into the world and you're fighting. It's kind of like a post-apocalyptic, kind of like most of these things are. But you're fighting for right now. You're only fighting these robotic characters, kind of drones and like these spider-like giant mech thing, mech creatures and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty good though. Graphically, it looks. I mean, it looked really nice. Like I didn't, and just playing it, like I didn't see any like stuttering or, like tearing in or anything like that. It played very well, very smooth. And it was only I only got to play. I think he was playing. He actually got to play in a group of 3. I think that's the max you can have in your group when you go into the world. But just the 2 of us, we just played, duo. You can turn that off, on and off if you want to fill your team. But yeah, it was really cool. It was just I don't know, it just kind of clicked. Maybe because I was playing with him too. Like he kind of knew obviously what he was doing, so he was able to help me along the way. If you want, you can. There's like a free loadout you can do, like if you don't have any weapons on you. And I don't know if this is just for the tech test, but you actually got to keep that stuff too. Like if you actually were able to extract after you went through the level, and or the gathering other things, or if you didn't get anything and you only had what was on you, you still got to keep that stuff. So it's kind of cool. And then just like the other games, you can there's different quests and stuff that the different people within the world will give you. So it was like I had to like destroy like certain number of these little like spider like they're like little tiny, I think they're called ticks, but they look like spiders, spider droids, and pick up their whatever the little battery or energy component they drop and stuff like that. But yeah, it was pretty fun. I actually quite enjoyed it. And I guess the other games kind of have a story to them, I guess, and maybe very light, but there was like an actually like story introduction to this game, like when you first start off, and a little bit of lore here and there as you're going, through the like when you visit the different people to get your quests and stuff like that. It wasn't just straight up quests and you're out the door. They give you a little bit of lore for the world. So it was actually it was pretty cool. I liked it, and actually so much so that I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was only that weekend. So I was like, later in the week I was like, I'm gonna try to play it again, but I was like, no, it was only for that weekend for now. So, and I don't think I was gonna look it up before this show, but I don't think there's a release date yet for it, unfortunately, but hopefully fairly soon. So if they're already doing, these tests or betas, I think they had done another one maybe a few weeks ago or last month. So hopefully it won't be too much longer before it's actually released.
And is Sega publishing this?
I was just actually about to check. Hold on, I don't know if Sega's publishing it. All right, give me 1 second. Look it up. No, it's Embark Studios. They're the developer and publisher, actually. So it's not Sega. Oh, it's the guys who make the finals. It's the same. It's the same.
Oh, huh. It's more interesting too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where they have the bandwidth to doing a second game. I didn't think they were that big of a. I didn't think they were as big of a company that they would have multiple development teams. But I think they have to in order to be doing the finals and also working on Arc Raiders.
Yeah. So basically, 2 live service games. So they'll be juggling now. So yeah. Yeah, I don't know if this is like the exact same team or if it's another internal team within the company, but I'll have to do some research on that to see. But yeah, pretty good game. Definitely looking forward to it when it releases.
Okay, I won't spend too much time on my extracurricular activity. I've been playing a little bit of Days Gone. You could call it Days Gone Remastered, and so what has happened with this game is it's remastered on the PS5. The PC version also received a lot of the same like performance and graphical updates. What the PC did not get, if you're not paying, is it didn't get any of the new free content, which, as far as I know, primarily is a horde mode. And not, maybe there's some other stuff, but like I said, I went to play it to see, how much better it looked from the graphical upgrades that it got. In some cases, it looks a lot better. In other cases, not so much. So, your mileage will vary, based on kind of what you observe in the game. The open world kind of part of the game to me is what looks better. When you get into more of like a Crucible contained kind of mission environment, then I feel like the graphical upgrades don't look as good. But overall, I would say Days Gone is probably a little bit better of a game than I was kind of led to believe. And I've actually been wanting to get on board with it since it came to PC. But there's a lot of similarities between Days Gone and Far Cry 5 specifically. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're definitely playing this. There's enough frustrating things also in the game and its structure, in the way it kind of, I would almost say glitches, but like goes from open world to like I said, contained mission. On a couple of occasions, I've been in a mission, been leaving, and it says you're leaving the mission area. I'm like, how am I leaving the mission area in an open world game? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But apparently they, when you're on a mission, they kind of close things back in, probably to maintain like, memory allocation and performance and things like that. I'm like, okay, but like there's some problems with that. Sometimes you will clip from the open world phase into a contained mission, and you're like, okay, 1, I didn't realize that could just happen, but 2, like I didn't see mission objectives or things like that. Like I said, I've gotten the warning that, hey, you're leaving the mission area, and I'm like, so like what were my objectives for this? Like I never saw them. And sometimes it's because like there's some weirdisms between, oh, they'll present you the mission objectives like the first time you go in there, but if you go a second time because you didn't complete the mission the first time, like it doesn't like present that same information. So then you're like hunting and pecking for like, okay, what was I supposed to do here again? So, but that being said, I'm having fun playing the game despite those minor frustrations. So to me, it's a game that punches above its belt, but definitely punches above some of the commentary and criticisms that it got online, I think. Although, like I said, it is rough around the edges and definitely has some things that it kicks up against. So we'll just see how it goes. The other thing I've been playing is, as I mentioned a couple times this podcast, I have started another run in Doom Eternal, and having fun with it. Also, I spent some time playing it on my Steam Deck, and it plays wonderfully on the Steam Deck. Actually, in some ways, better. So much so that it convinced me that, like, hey, the next time I play this on like my big boy PC, I do want to try doing it with a controller because I did perfectly fine right on a Steam Deck with a controller. And so I tried it. It did not work as well. So I'm not spending time trying to track down, is it me? Is it them? Is it the controller? I just promptly went back to mouse and keyboard on a PC. So, but a key takeaway is this is a game that does play wonderfully on the Steam Deck. If you're looking, if you're concerned about like performance of this game or whatever, but it plays wonderfully in my opinion. Tao, you've also got another thing that you've been hitting up here, which is out of the nostalgia closet.
Yeah, still go through No Man's Sky. Actually, I had taken like a week or two off, and then I realized that there was a new expedition that they had started about a month ago. I was like, oh, okay, so I'll kind of start, going through that, and then I realized I only had like a week and a half that I had to finish that. So I kind of powered through that, and I was actually able to get through that, and that came out during the last kind of big update, which was the fossils update. I'm sorry, relics update, where basically, so before in the game you can find fossils, and basically you just find them and then you can just trade them or sell them for a good amount of cash, usually a good amount of units. Now you still sell them if you want to, but you can actually put them on display, and there's a little bit of customization you can do. Like you can find different like sets of arms and torsos and heads, stuff like that, legs. So you can kind of make these weird fossil creatures and kind of basically just display them in your base. So I finally did that, and then the end of that expedition, you usually get like some kind of big either a new ship or a new freighter for your to send them out and do like missions or something kind of special. So they gave you a new weapon. It's basically a staff with kind of like a almost like a ram's head at the end of it. That's like the third staff I think I've gotten from one of these expeditions. So it's kind of cool. So I was able to get that, and then just give you like mostly just kind of like decorative stuff like banners and other stuff you can put in your base too as you're going through the expedition. So I was able to do that, and then I'm just kind of going back through my main save. I actually beat the main story again for on PC because I had done it on 360 or on my Xbox One a while ago, but I had to do it again on PC because I had to you have to go through the main story to get to like the newer gas planets and like larger water worlds that you can go into now from a couple of updates ago. So now I can finally get into those systems and planets and stuff like that and do that. So I kind of wanted to do that, and now I'm just kind of building my base and kind of just searching around for more habitable planets, not just like all of them, where it's raining acid and or it's like super freezing and stuff like that, just so I can build like I'm gonna try to build like a good base. Like right now, I do have like a main base, but it's just like I kind of just threw it together just so I can store stuff and kind of get the story stuff going through done. So now I want to kind of just get going on a main base. So I'll start doing that, and then probably a new expedition should be starting the next week or two, I believe. They usually run about a month and a half, 2 months. So I'm assuming that the new one should be out soon. I thought they usually started once the one ended, but there's nothing new after that one ended. So I must be taking a break. So we'll have to see what happens there and if there's another major update or not.
Alrighty. And so that's it for our dangling participles of our gaming experience. Only thing else we want to cover is significant releases coming out this week. And so in this segment, again, we don't run down every single game that's going to come out. And we just kind of keep and tailor the game to things that we think are significant or are of particular interest to us. So significant releases out this week, not a hugely crowded area. Doom: The Dark Ages launches on May 15th, which is a Thursday. That game coming out for the PS5, the Xbox, and the PC. And then also Capcom Fighting Collection 2 comes out on May 16th, which is the Friday. That title available on PS4, Switch, I guess the Xbox Series, and the PC. I'm a little confused why it's not on PS5, but obviously you can still play it on PS5. You just pull down the PS4 version. So Tao, either one of those games interests you? I know you said you plan on playing the Doom Dark Ages as soon as it becomes available. You're going to be checking out the Capcom Fighting Collection?
Yeah, I definitely want to check that one out because they have Power Stone in that one. Power Stone 1 and 2, which I remember my friend and I used to play all the time back in the day. I was kind of the, I guess, sort of, what's the Smash Brothers-esque, where you have just a bunch of characters like fighting each other and they have special moves and stuff like that. So that was always a good time. So I definitely want to check that one out.
Okay, and unfortunately, I was looking it up. That game is not on Game Pass.
No, yeah,
so.
I would have to buy that. Yeah, just like the first one. Yeah.
Okay, well, that is going to do it for us for episode number 385 for Sunday, the 11th of May. Tao, anything else you wanted to add?
No, actually, just the one thing I forgot to put on my round robin was I jumped back into Avowed 2. I started playing when I was starting to play South of Midnight. I was like, man, I still got Avowed. I got to play and I really want to finish that game. So I started playing that again. I finally got past the one part I was kind of stuck on in the Emerald Stair, which is kind of like the big bad of that area. I kind of just went back and started powering myself up, and then I got back to her and finished her off. So now I'm just kind of just going around that area, just kind of doing the same thing and just kind of power myself up for the next section. So doing that.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, and I didn't put it on my list, but I have been putting in time on Black Ops 6. It is a double XP weekend. So I said I was going to start Elden Ring up tonight after the podcast. I just things kept going on during Mother's Day that prevented me from getting to it. And so got some mental tug of war to do on those two topics for tonight, because it may be easier just to jump into some Blop 6 and kill some more things for the double XP weekend. I am Prestige, so I've Prestige 7 times now. So I'm at Prestige 7. I'm about level 35, 36, so I don't have that much further to go to try and knock that Prestige level out and maybe move to 8. So we'll just see. But thanks so much for anybody who happened to swing through the live stream. If you did, we appreciate you. Thanks so much for anybody who happens to swing by and watch the archive version of this live show on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube. If you do, please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post new content. Next week, Towmaster will be in the center seat, and DBQ and I will be backing him up for episode number 385. So until next time, stay safe out there. Play the games that you like. Come here to talk to us about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, joined here by Towmaster99. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.